Well, welcome to the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group meet and greet at the OpenInfra North America. My name is Amy Marrich. I am the chair of the working group. Jeremy, who signed in as Fungi, is basically the co-chair of the group. And for the most part, we are your most active members of the group. But we are always looking to grow the group and encourage participation. We meet on Tuesday mornings. I'm going to tell you the time in Eastern Standard, because we do tend to move the time, to not conflict with other meetings we have that do not flow with UTC. So we do officially have a UTC time, but it changes to accommodate meetings. So we are currently at 10 a.m. Eastern on the second Tuesday of the month. That's when you can meet us. We hold our meetings in the OpenInfra Diversity Room on OFTC or in Matrix. Our first topic apparently is the diversity survey, which we released in Vancouver a year ago. It has not gotten much love. We do update the survey every few years. We collect information using very similar questions so that we have some continuity, but we do improve other questions so that we get more recent and accurate information as well as things change over time. The link to the survey is openinfra.dev about diversity, which is actually our diversity and inclusion working group page, but you can get a link to it off of there. Urge you all to take it, as well as to pass it around to your colleagues and teammates to get more participation. The more information we get, better data. We do not have enough data points. We have left it open. Relaxed group.
Survey topic, we could be trying to brainstorm more ways that we can find people to take the struggle. We've tried to promote it on the project mailing lists, in foundation newsletter issues, keynotes at conferences, but unless nobody takes the survey. So we can figure out ways to actually entice people to get us some information so that we got something to work from. That would be amazing.
And it's important to note that the survey is completely anonymous. The downside of that is if someone says that we have run into an issue, we cannot go back to the person and say, how can we help you? But at the same time, more people are likely to participate in this type of survey that is totally anonymous. So it's got some give and take there in that fact. The Diversity and Inclusion Working Group is a working group out of the OpenInfra board. So as Jeremy already mentioned, it is not just the OpenStack project, though the first survey was, of course, OpenStack only, because that's the only project that existed. This time around, we have all projects you're involved in. So instead of doing one survey that kind of allows you to question, we decided to go with multiple surveys, isolate the answers. So at this time, I do not believe there are any responses that aren't OpenStack related, but the survey is also open to a lot of Starling X, our main communities. And I think that, go ahead, Julia.
I guess I don't think it's a negative necessarily that we have feedback from OpenStack, because OpenStack is by far the largest project. But getting, sorry, getting people to engage is kind of the challenge here, and as Chairman was saying, how we have to want the survey feedback. We do. We need to somehow engage people and drive them to that with enough context and reason. I don't know if there's anything to do beyond. Yeah, force it somehow.
Well, we can't force it. My thought was we can give swag for it, but that gets rid of all the anonymity. We can't swag because then we know who you were. I'm always into, if we can reward people to get a response, let's reward them. And no, I don't think it's negative that we don't have anyone from Lycato or Zoll. It's a smaller community. Everything's going well. May just not do it. Also, a smaller community might go, well, if I respond, someone may be able to identify me.
Question.
Yeah.
So I am new to the group. Is it possible to get a recap of what the group is about and what it's trying to do? Because I read the about us very quickly, but I have no background on this. I would love to be part of it, but I think for new members also, maybe it's not just a survey, it's like education. Like I didn't know this group existed, and I've been with the OpenStack for a while now.
So if we go back in time, so there was the Women of OpenStack. That was a large group of primarily women. Allies were invited, but always feel welcome because they thought of it as a safe space. At the same time, right before the Tokyo Summit, there was also the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group tried to investigate diversity and inclusion within the OpenStack community. That came out of a board initiative. So they did the first survey prior to Tokyo. The results, but they weren't the most active group because it was people basically on the board, a few others, but they had other duties. So the Women of OpenStack said, people will run with what your needs were. And that's where here at Lunch and Learning came from. The one time ran in Barcelona communication tools workshop came from. Oddly enough, the feedback we got from that survey was one of the issues I have is I do not understand the tooling. It wasn't what we were looking for. But we saw a need and we fixed it. So over time, there were socials, there were sponsored lunches. And then I want to say in the second Vancouver Summit, leading up to it, over time, as we moved the Women of OpenStack to say, hey, we should be following more of the tool set, the rest of the community, we're going to move from phone calls to IRC. A lot of the Women of OpenStack were sales, marketing. IRC was not in their toolkit. We lost a lot of the membership and activity there. Also, rules changed. Life cycle for OpenStack changed. So at one point, I was trying to run both groups. It didn't make sense. We wanted to be more inclusive. We wanted to be more diverse. So at the second Vancouver Summit, Red Hat, I was not a Red Hat employee at the time, was sponsoring the lunch. I asked the foundation to reach out to the sponsor and said, would you mind if we changed it from the Women of OpenStack lunch to diversity? They were all for it. Following that momentum, we basically merged the two groups together. It became the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group. I probably stepped over boundaries because I was not on the board at the time. So I should not have been the chair of the working group. But we took it over. No one complained. We did work. So combine the two groups into the one group, Diversity and Inclusion Working Group, which made it more open for allies to join the lunch and so on and so forth. And we also realized about that time the survey and had the second survey.
Also did a conduct overhaul.
Well, that's more recent. So with the second survey, not as much responses as the first, but a smaller community as a whole. So not surprising that the numbers of responses went down, but we still had a good percentage of data points. More recently, in the last year, as Jeremy just mentioned, we revitalized the code of conduct, updated it. And about that time, we also released the second or the third version of the diversity survey. That's where the larger work has come. We have found, like, when we're working on something like the code of conduct rewrite, where we're developing the new questions for the diversity survey, more people get involved. But nobody sticks around. It's,
The inclusive terminology initiative, some people.
yeah, we did do that, inclusive naming a couple of years ago. That is still out there. Some of the OpenStack projects, I believe Kata and Zool and some others have updated their docs to be more inclusive. I know Sunbeam is using Main as their branch versus master. But we left it up to the projects themselves on that point. Newer project, of course, is easier to switch from master to main. Go ahead, Julia.
Or did say for meetings back in Vancouver, we'd really like the OpenStack project to contain the branches, but we recognize
It would be really, really hard and we might break things.
yeah, and it requires a plan, and basically it was kind of viewed as it's too big.
Well, and the Git project itself still uses master as the default name for its default branches. You install the latest version of Git today and you get a init, you get a master branch.
I don't believe that's the case. I thought it was main.
They had
GitHub is
changes.
main.
GitHub uses main if you create a repository on GitHub. Git project still uses master.
But they changed that.
Not in the most recent versions. There were some proposals on the Git mailing list back in 2019, 2020. Which sort of went nowhere. Eventually, there were patches up to do it. Get leadership to have interest in pushing that forward. So
We have encouraged from see any new projects consider using me. Our tooling allows for it, but we haven't had all that many new projects. For most of our stuff is still on master, but documentations themselves have been changed to be more. So yes, that was another initiative we headed and keep an eye on as
I
well.
think that's also like, I mean, on the page that you have, like the initiatives that have been successful, maybe have those highlighted so people know the work that has been done. Because then you don't know, like the group, I think that like you mentioned, like people come in when there is something being worked on. But then highlighting your successes and saying, we've already done this and we'd like to work on additional things, maybe that would help. I don't know.
It's good feedback. We're so entrenched in it. We don't see things.
I'm completely new, so I'm trying to figure out like, and what you just said, it's great stuff that you've worked on already, so.
And we do encourage, diversity and inclusion at the events. Thought we were gonna have pronoun stickers, and I don't know what happened to them. I think Rob,
No, yeah, we were supposed to.
we're supposed to. But making sure there's a gender neutral bathroom. There's a permanent one on this campus, which is awesome. Now we did run into some, we wanted these things implemented. Asia team, and they did not happen, but then we knew that would be hard. Different culture. So that is a challenge as well. But the best we can to make sure that everyone is included. Encourage diversity because everyone brings something different to the table. It's not just whether you can bring something technical to the table, whether you bring more of a marketing aspect or more of a business aspect, because those are questions that need to be asked. Because how you approach something is different than how I approach something. Julia, Corey, and different things. We also used to have the mentoring program. The last time we tried to run it, we changed to be more like the Kubernetes community, thinking they were having better luck with theirs than we were. We changed to cohorts versus one-on-one mentoring. What we found out was that the mentees were not even willing to introduce themselves to the mentors. So that project has kind of died off. Anytime anyone wants to mentoring program, please contact us. We'll set you up. At the same time, we met Corey, Vancouver. He brought students. So he has direct mentoring that we've arranged with Red Hat. Participate in outreaching when there is funding. This cycle, there was no funding for it. If anyone would like to donate, I believe it's like $8,500 for an outreaching mentor. Up to either NOAA Foundation or myself, and we'll help you to donate money. Outreach is a great program. I think this is the first cycle we have not participated in it. It's time. Are we at time? Yeah. Okay, we are at time. So thank you all for participating.